we go.
Hello, ITS Georgia. I'm hoping this is coming through good and streaming okay, and everyone can hear me. So looking for a little bit of a thumbs up, but we'll keep going. Good. Awesome, thank you. Well, hello, ITS Georgia members and guests. Welcome to our first meeting of 2021. Today, we're going to be discussing with City of Marietta, Gwinnett County, and City of Atlanta regarding the impacts of COVID on projects, budgets, programs, and many other things that, of course, this pandemic has affected all of us in so many ways. Today is January 27th, 2021 for some of us. We can officially say we made it through this unimaginable year of 2020, although some days, I'm not going to lie, it can feel like December 57th, 2020. I hope that's not what you guys are feeling today, but I know it does seem like we've just got a lot of the same from last year. We are unfortunately quickly approaching our 1 year of running full virtual. We have not had an in-person meeting since our February 26th meeting on Georgia Tech's campus of last year. Congratulations to all of you for being resilient, because if anyone would have told any of us what all we had to endure over the past 10 to 11 months, I think we would have laughed. I hope all of you have managed to remain safe during this time and hanging on the hope that we will one day get to see one another in person soon. As for ITS Georgia, we are continuing to look ahead and plan for a fantastic 2021 and continue to work together to make decisions regarding our future meetings. We want to thank you for providing us all with some grace as we move through this world of uncertainty, and we will keep you informed as we make decisions on full virtual, in-person, or a mixture of both. We did have a 2021 strategic planning meeting last month where we as the board discussed the focus and goals of the ITS Georgia organization in the year to come. If any of you have any input you would like to provide, since we are at the early part of the year, please do not hesitate to reach out to me personally, any of the other board members, or through our website. We have a lot of exciting things that are being planned, and we'll keep you informed through our many different media platforms. As for looking ahead, please mark your calendars. February 24th, we will have also a full virtual meeting and with a discussion on Smart Columbus. Our March meeting could be full virtual, maybe in person, so keep a lookout for that, but it will be an update on GDOT's ATMS. And as for April, we will be coming together to hear about MARTA's transit plan. One other item I would like for you guys to get on the calendar is our annual meeting, 2021 annual meeting, Ty Alexander with AECOM is leading the efforts in planning this meeting. Please mark your calendars and make a trip down to Savannah, Georgia with us. It will be September 19th to the 21st. The theme is on the road again. And to be honest, I really can't wait to get on the road again for this event. So hopefully we will all be down there in person with one another. I want to show my appreciation for our ITS Georgia board and volunteers for guiding our organization through these times. There have been many subcommittees formed with many meetings throughout the month to discuss many different items. This is all volunteer time, and I just want to thank the individual board members as well as their companies, organizations they work for. It has been truly a team effort to get through 2020 and as we begin to maneuver through this first part of 2021. I do want to welcome some new board members this year. We have Emily Dwyer with GDOT. We have Dino Pampolina with Jacobs. We have Natalie Schmuzmingle-Cook with Kimley Horn and Associates and Stephen Sheffield, as well as thank our previous board members for their continued support and volunteer time. And finally, I want to thank all of you for tuning in today to our first meeting of 2021 to hear from a panel of some of the finest people I know. But before we begin the technical side of this program, I want to present this month's sponsor, as we cannot keep these monthly meetings and our organization goals going without you sponsoring us. A big thank you to Chuck Bailey with KCI for your continued support with ITS Georgia. We look forward to hearing about you and your company. Chuck, take it away.
Thank you, Winter. Well, good day to everyone. I'm not going to take a whole lot of anyone's time. KCI has been a member of ITS Georgia, I want to say, for the past 3 to 4 years since we started our traffic and ITS group. We're very proud to be a member of ITS Georgia. The relationships, the speakers, everything that ITS Georgia puts out for our community. If you have any questions about KCI, we are a full service civil firm with practices in roadway, traffic, survey, SUE, and CEI. If you have any questions about KCI, please reach out to myself or anyone, Mike Bush, Andrew Antweiler, Holly Painter, just to name a few. But we will continue to support ITS Georgia and look forward to a great 2021. Winter, back over to you.
Awesome, thank you. Yes, let's look forward to a great 2021. And thanks again, Chuck, for your continued efforts in supporting us. Thank you again, guys, for tuning in today. To hear from a few of our locals, we have Bill, Tom, and Josh as they talk to us about the impacts of COVID on the city of Marietta, Gwinnett County, and the city of Atlanta, and how they stepped up to handle the situation. It is now time for me to introduce our moderator, Ben Lempke with Georgia Department of Transportation. Ben graduated with a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Georgia Tech in 2016. Throughout college, Ben worked as a construction materials technician for a geotechnical engineering firm. And after graduating, he worked as a project engineer for a general contractor in building construction. In 2019, Ben transitioned to traffic engineering and began working for GDOT traffic operations. Ben is currently a contract supervisor for GDOT's SIGOPS program, formerly known as RTOP. And with that, the floor is yours, Ben. Thank you.
Thanks, Winter. Hopefully everyone can hear me fine. As Winter mentioned, we'll be hearing from Tom, Josh, and Bill today. So each of our speakers will share a quick presentation, and then following the presentations, we'll have questions for our speakers. So first up is Bill Bruton. Bill was named Marietta's city manager in January 2000. He previously served as city manager of Hartsville, South Carolina, and Colonial Beach, Virginia. Bill was born in Atlanta, Georgia, and later graduated from the University of North Carolina School of Law and holds a bachelor's degree in public administration and political science from Duke University, where he was president of the student body. Bill has won many professional and community awards, including the South Carolina Downtown Development Association Public Official Leadership Award in 1993, the Distinguished Service Award in 2000, the Cobb YMCA Volunteer of the Year Award in 2012 and the Cobb Landmarks Historic Preservation Award in 2015. In 2010, Bill was selected by the Carl Vinson Institute to travel to China, where he taught city management principles at the Beijing Administration College to city officials from the various departments of the Beijing city government. Under Bill's leadership, communities have been honored with the All-American City Award, the nation's most prestigious civic honor. Marietta earned the award in 2006 and was the first Georgia city in 30 years to win. Hartsfield, South Carolina won the award in 1996. In 2020, Marietta became the second city to ever win the All-American City Hall of Fame Award. During Bill's tenure, cities that he has managed have been honored with the National Civic League's All-American City and All-American City Hall of Fame, the Georgia Municipal Association's City of Excellence, Certified City of Ethics and Visionary City Award, the Georgia Trend Magazine's Trendsetter, the International Downtown Association and American Planning Association's Best Redevelopment Plan, Cobb Landmarks Historic Preservation Award, the American City and Counties Crown Communities Award, State of Georgia's Technology Innovation Award, and the Smart Cities Connect Mobility Award for Marietta's Travel Safely app, and the Community Engagement Award for Marietta's Trash Talk app. Bill served as the committee chair for Marietta's 175th anniversary celebration and the 150th anniversary of the Battles of Marietta year-long commemoration. Bill is a member of several professional organizations, including the International City and County Management Association, and has presented at conferences across the United States. He previously served on the Georgia Municipal Association's Legislative Policy Council and currently serves on the Federal Policy Council. Bill is a member of the Marietta Kiwanis Club and Strand Advisory Board, the Metro YMCA Youth Soccer Board, and various civic boards. He has been a YMCA soccer coach since 2003, and his teams have won 2 state championships. He and his wife, Laurie, have 2 children. Now I'll hand over to Bill to share his presentation. Just as a reminder, enter any questions you have into the YouTube chat box, and we'll send those questions to the speakers at the end of the presentation. All right, Bill, you can go ahead now.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate the time today. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening in. I want to go through what Marietta dealt with the pandemic and kind of where we are now, what we're currently dealing with. I'm going to highlight a few transportation issues as we go through also, but really focus overall on what the city in general has had to deal with. You're all familiar with Marietta and our population. The one thing that I want to there, though, that really deals with transportation is, according to the census, we are in the top 20 cities in the country as far as population change. And that means the amount of people that we actually have here at night doubles during the day. It's pretty amazing when you look at the fact that, at least in the previous census, we'll see what the current one says, we actually had more of a transition of people than Washington, D.C., as far as percentage-wise. So that definitely affects our transportation network. As was said, we started out the year pretty well. We were getting a lot of awards, and 2020 was starting to be one of our best years. And then, we faced the same thing everybody else did. March came, and we were dealing with different things with COVID. But one thing we had done right before COVID hit, thankfully, we were able to really start honing in on permitting issues and went really virtual on everything that we do, dealing with building permits, inspections, plan reviews, all the rest, along with all of our payment systems. And that really came in handy as we got into the issue of COVID. We also, as many of you know, we're the first city in the country to be totally connected with all of our traffic signals and have preemption everywhere in the city. And that also proved to be very important as we were responding. When we hit March and COVID really started hitting the news, I remember distinctly March 13th because we had a meeting of all of our departments, and I really challenged them as we were talking about COVID to think of it in a different way. Usually when we have an emergency, it's something like a snowstorm or power outages that we would have. Well, this we knew was going to be different. We didn't know how different. I don't think any of us would have thought we'd be sitting here basically a year later dealing with just as much or worse. But we knew that it was not going to be a small event. We knew it was not going to be short duration. So basically, we declared a state of emergency right then on March 13th. And we said, we're going to do things differently than we would with any other natural disaster that we're facing. So we said, look, this is going to be extremely serious. It's going to be very long in duration. We knew that public safety and service was going to be really the backbone of the community as we move forward, not knowing what everybody else was going to be able to do. I looked at all of our departments, and we have a lot of different ones. But in looking at every position we had, we determined that 80% of all of our employees, and we've got over 800, but 80% of them were either going to have to be in the field or supporting individuals that were in the field. So basically, everybody was essential. So that's what we declared, that all of our employees were essential employees, all of our services were essential, and we were going to remain open for business in our community. Now, in order to do that, though, we had to really quickly think, and I think this is back, the first week of March, basically, we had to think about how are we going to do this, not knowing how bad the pandemic was going to be. At that point, you didn't know. People were saying, horrible things about, you might have half of your employees sick at once. You just didn't know where it was going to go. So what we did is we said we need to harden our workforce. And how do you do that? Well, we looked at every building, every operation we have, and we tried to figure out how we could move people to other areas within buildings and within our campuses so that we wouldn't have any one organization or work group all together at one time so that they could all get exposed or get sick at one time and knock that part of our workforce out and our operation, our service delivery. And doing that, we had to look at every building, we had to look at all of our floors, we had to look at every office, determine where we needed to move individuals. And we used a lot, basically every empty space that we had, including city council offices, moved people into those type of offices, and had to do an awful lot of IT work. We had to go out and put computers in places they were not previously, had to do a lot of wiring, spend a lot of money on that up front, but it's really paid off. And we converted offices, like I said, everywhere. The one that you see on the left here, that's in one of our recreation centers, and we actually did move some of our IT staff into that building. We not only, though, had to look at the individuals that were in office environments, we had to look at all of our crews. And so we took, our electrical crews and our sanitation crews, broke them up and said, okay, well, a third of you are going to report to this location every morning, and the other 2/3 are going to have other locations. You're never going to see each other during the day. You're going to report to that location. You're going to come back at night, leave your trucks there, and there's no cross-contamination issues as far as the virus spreading among those work groups. And that's worked very well for us. We also looked at ways that we could get people to a situation where they wouldn't even have to come in the building. So we looked at code, we looked at inspections, and found ways that they basically can just drive up, download what they need, get in their truck, head out, come back in, do the same thing without ever having to go in the building or actually interact with any of the other employees. We also had to look at our buildings, however, and like everybody else. And so luckily we had some opportunities that were really beneficial to us, which are drive-up windows that we were able to use. And so as you can see with our power company, that really helped. But we, besides the drive-up windows, we also had converted some teller windows that we have in different buildings. So we had that immediate barrier that was able to protect us and our employees. We had to establish barriers everywhere else in all the different offices that we have throughout the city. So we jumped on that immediately in March and established that everywhere that we have it. Had to do hand sanitizer like everybody else is doing. But we had to do that in all of our buildings immediately because of the fact that we had the public coming in our buildings from day one. We also, sanitation, big deal. We used UV, which you see on the right. We've actually now gone to converting all of our HVA systems over to a different type of system that actually removes not only COVID, but also any other contaminant that we would have in the building. Using facial recognition in order to be able to tell if people have fevers, and we've deployed that in the city. And also the mask mandates that now most everybody has. We put those in place before many people had those. We also worked with the health department and did something to try to help out, especially at the beginning of the crisis. We knew that the health department was going to be charged with enforcing all these guidelines and rules that were coming out of the state and federal governments, but they didn't have the staff to do it. And so what we did is we took our inspection staff with the fire department. We partnered with the health department. They trained our people, and then our people were able to actually go out to the restaurants and other businesses, big box stores, all the rest. And then they were able to guide those business owners on what they needed to do as far as complying with all the health organization rules. Another thing that we did right off the bat, and this was in March also, before the CARES Act was even approved, we passed our own CARES Act. And that was basically giving the same thing the CARES Act ended up doing later. We passed an act quickly when we decided we were going to stay open and said that we will give leave to our employees if they get sick or if they have other problems where they're needing to take care of family members who are sick. So it is so closely related and mirrored by the CARES Act that when the CARES Act went out at the end of December, we didn't miss a beat because our act was already in place. We also did something that I don't know that anybody else has done, but we said that if we've got employees that are out and they're working, we want to make sure they don't have a financial burden. So we put it in front of council, and council approved allowing for the city to pay all out-of-pocket costs for any health issue that deals with COVID. So none of our employees have to worry about any costs if they go to the hospital or they have other issues dealing with COVID. We watch every day. I get this report every day that shows exactly what is happening in the departments, and we monitor that on a daily basis. And if we've got issues that are going on and we need to spread out people even more or split up working crews even more, we jump on it immediately that day. We've seen some interesting things as far as numbers. And you'll see on the sanitation issues, we had a huge increase right in April when everybody was basically had to stay home with most businesses. Everybody's out in the yard. Yard debris went up 84%. We're trying to deal with COVID at the same time we're having these service issues with the service going up 84% then. And what we saw going forward, by the time we got to August, solid waste and recycling had both gone up about 70%. And we think most of that is because of ordering that people did with Amazon and other things. They're getting tons of packaging that was coming in, along with a lot of people that still were staying home. Building permits went down obviously at the very beginning, but because we stayed open, we were processing all these developments throughout the process. And a lot of contractors stayed with us during that process because they couldn't work other places. And so because of that, we actually saw a huge increase in all of our commercial and residential building, that by the time we hit August, as you can see, we were up 218% in commercial and 55% residential, and it has kept going since then. As far as transportation goes, we saw some very interesting things, and I know people wondered about this, but we have red light cameras up in 3 locations. We also have school bus cameras that are up as far as running those school buses when they have their lights out. And we saw a pretty dramatic increase that occurred after the lockdown. And it's the one that I really want to focus on there as far as if you're looking at the numbers. You look at school bus. When we were in January and February, we were at 188 and 226. By the time we got to December, look at the number, 423. Huge increase that we're seeing. And that's because and as I'll show you in the next slide, we found that people really are treating it kind of as the wild, wild west as far as the way they drive and the habits that they formed over this time period. As you can see with super speeder violations, and this really shows it. We know we've got racing that is going on. We've all heard the stories of different things and accidents, and you can see it right here. I mean, super speeder overall has gone up 263%. But if you sit there and look at that May number, if the year before we had 2, and then we ended up with 55 in 2020, and then it goes up to 65 in June. We still got the problem, and we're still arresting people on a decent basis as far as folks that are out there that are just because there are fewer people on the roads and have been, they're speeding continually. Now the results for us have been actually pretty good. I mean, as good as you can be during a COVID year. We've had cases obviously within the city, like everybody has, but really they're being caused by stuff that is happening outside of work. And I'll give you an example. With all the cases that we've had over 40% of them all happened in December. 40% for that entire year happened in December. And that's because of all the social activities that were going on at the end of November and during December. But really very few have actually happened at work because of everything that we have been doing. We've been able to isolate small exposures to small areas within our work groups. And so even though we have had exposures and we have had people get coronavirus, we've very quickly been able to isolate those individuals and really not let that spread to our other operations. And so because of all that, we've been up and running since the beginning of the crisis. Really one of the few governments, I think, that did not have anybody that was working from home. Everybody was here the entire time and has been. And we feel like we've been able to really provide those services that the community needs and are continuing on as we go forward. But thank you very much for the time, and I look forward to any questions that you may have at the end.
Thanks, Bill. That was very informative. Just as a reminder, be sure to put your questions into the YouTube chat, and we'll take those following the presentations. Next up is Tom Sever. Tom is the Assistant Director of the Gwinnett County Department of Transportation. Tom graduated from Georgia Tech with a Bachelor of Civil Engineer in 1993. After working in the private sector, he joined Gwinnett County in 2000 and has served as the Traffic Signal and ITS Section Manager and the Deputy Director for Traffic Engineering, Operations, and Road Maintenance before being promoted to Assistant Director in late 2020. Tom supports the county staff that is responsible for the maintenance and operations of over 740 traffic signals, the county's Advanced Transportation Management System and Traffic Control Center, over 2,650 miles of roads along with the associated right-of-way, traffic signs, and sidewalk. In addition, Gwinnett DOT operates the county airport, Gwinnett Transit, and a robust SPLOST program. Tom is a registered professional engineer in the state of Georgia, a member of Georgia Section ITE, and a past president of ITS Georgia. Tom and his wife, Reverend Tracy Sever, are the proud parents of 2 teenage boys, Austin and Wesley. Now I will turn it over to Tom to share his presentation. And as a reminder, be sure to type any questions you have into the chat and we'll take those at the end.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you everyone for your time today. You'll probably hear some similarities to what Bill was talking about with the city of Marietta, but I'll go through our presentation here. There definitely were impacts to the workforce and things we had to do to keep them safe, but also a way to provide service to citizens. We'll dive into kind of how our increase in citizen requests and how that breaks down. Obviously, there'll be some change in traffic flow patterns. Obviously, there's an impact to funding with everybody being at home. Also, I'll talk about our transit service specifically and how they had to respond, a little bit about CARES Act, and then I'll talk about our planning going forward. So again, we had to identify our essential workforce that would be reporting to work every day based on our needs and responsibilities. And basically all our field staff was considered essential, as well as we're road contractors. So we were able to keep our projects moving forward. We implemented a staggered schedule for our staff, a little different than what Bill was talking about in Marietta. Instead of reporting to different facilities, we have people come in between at 6:30 or 7 or 7:30 just to minimize that personal contact. Of course, in vehicles, that we tried to minimize the sharing of vehicles, but if you were having to ride with someone, you had to wear a mask. And then we implemented hazard pay for all our staff working out in the field. That also included our salaried and our hourly staff as well. And another thing is we were able to expand our work hours for contractors. And as a result, we were able to complete 26 projects in 2020, even in the midst of the pandemic, and we started on 11 more. Now, unlike Marietta, we did transition most of our office staff to telecommuting. We did this in the course of a few days with a lot of assistance from our Information Technology Services Department here at the county. They had to provide us devices to this essential staff to work remotely, create some new VPN accounts to access the county network. And another thing is to maintain our call services. They had to install soft phones on those devices so we could continue to take calls at home since we were not in the office. In fact, there's one administrative person I have not seen since March, and I've only talked to once or twice, but she's continuing to do her job and do it well remotely. We implemented a rotating schedule for staff and make accommodations so we could maintain social distancing. And we did have one person that kept a regular 8 to 5 days a week schedule to provide that continuity and support, particularly in personnel matters. Again, we implemented the hazard pay for our on-site staff. That did not go as long as it has continued for our field staff. But then the county made the decision to start transitioning back into the office in May. And I've been in the office personally pretty every day since May for the most part. The county implemented a number of guidelines and policies through the county administrator's office. Those have had to be tweaked based on the evolving conditions and the states of emergency declared by the federal, state, and local governments. So we had to consider the fluidity and guidance from the CDC, especially at the beginning of the pandemic. And we've had to make a concerted effort to just share this information, make it easily understood to meet our staff's needs. A key role was our HR liaison. They worked with our county HR department. They kept track of exposures, potential exposures, ordered deep cleaning if there was an exposure, weekly updates, similar to the numbers Bill was showing for Marietta to keep our staff informed, and then share any guidance, and then track the hazard pay hours for over 155 employees. And then there was also things like emergency paid sick leave and emergency family medical leave, which will actually be continuing into next month based on what I've heard today. Now let's dig into our citizen request. We saw an increase from 2019 into 2020. We handled almost more than double the number of phone calls for citizens. But I want to dig into it a little bit deeper. With the decrease in traffic volumes, we had a definite decrease in single timing requests, over 30%. But other requests increased drastically. Our requests related to streetlights increased 69%. Our sidewalk repair request increased 24%. And our request to mow right-of-way increased 175%. And I think a lot of these, particularly the streetlights and sidewalks, are due to people being home more, getting out and walking. You spend 4 or 5 hours inside your house doing your telecommuting. You need to get out and stretch your legs. And I think some of these are some of the reasons that we've seen those increases. I think the right-of-way request is also related, but also it's been a wet year and we've had a good bit of growing on the grass. And then some of our traffic flow changes. We looked at our accident reports and we don't have all of 2020 yet, but January through October, we saw a decrease from almost 29,000 to about 21,600 so far in 2020. So we will definitely be down as far as accidents go, but that makes sense. Volumes are down, accidents should be down. But our request from citizens for speeding has increased from prior years. Problem is for our residents in our residential subdivisions for our speed hunt program, it's harder to complete petitions because people don't want to go door to door and risk that exposure. And as a more incidental is we've compared some of our manable signs from 2019 to 2020. And you can see our average speeds and our 85th percentile speeds for these two roads both increased from 2019 to 2020. So there's definitely still that desire to go too fast and in too many places for folks. Obviously, COVID-19 did impact local funding, but we are fortunate that our SPLOST collections have remained steady. We never saw a drop over 5% in any one month. And while we have not received our December numbers, our collections have already exceeded projections because, we're already very conservative in our estimations for our SPLOST program. One of the big things that helped with that is the market facilitator bill that was signed at the end of January and took effect the 1st of April. So right as the lockdown was starting. So all the stuff that folks were buying on the internet, all that sales tax was collected and distributed, which made a big, which probably is a big reason why we continue to see our SPLOST revenues maintain the level they have. But that said, other funding did take a big hit. Transit revenue was down, and I'll speak more into what activities they had to do. Fortunately, CARES Act offset a lot of that reduction. But our parks, there were no leases of pavilions and other facilities, so those revenues were down significantly, as was hotel motel tax revenues were down. And that's probably true across the state. And here's kind of a breakdown of some of the major milestones that transit experienced last year. They had to increase cleaning starting in March, went from monthly cleaning to daily cleaning of the buses. Commuter routes were reduced by half. And then finally, towards the end of the month, fare collection was suspended and rare only loading, again, to minimize contact between the passengers and the drivers. And in April, additional guidance from CDC, we ended up putting multiple language information out on all our buses. Our commuter routes were completely suspended. And then we reduced our capacity on local buses to the 11 passenger maximum. As June rolled around, we were able to make a slight increase and bring back commuter service, which was helpful. July, we completed installation of barriers for our operators on our local buses and paratransit vehicles to provide an extra level of safety. And then in November, we started resuming fare collection and front door loading. And not just Gwinnett Transit, but also Marietta, I believe, did the same thing at the same time. I mentioned CARES Act earlier. I won't go into great detail, but it did assist us a lot with transit operations and providing funding for that. It also paid for computer upgrades to transition most of Gwinnett County to a mobile device instead of a standard desktop computer. And it also helped cover our pay differential that we've been paying to our essential employees. Now, planning wise, we will continue to review these measures we've implemented for the pandemic to see how we want to continue those in the future. We will continue some level of telecommuting. We've had some staff that have thrived in telecommuting, and we want to be able to provide that value to them. Virtual meetings. I mean, I don't think any of us have missed driving an hour to a virtual meeting at various places around Atlanta. And the challenges, the back-to-back meetings we all seem to probably end up in. We've expanded the use of our mobile technology for our field staff and transitioned a lot of our things like invoices to fully electronic routing, and we'll continue to look at other opportunities to go digital. And with that, I appreciate your time, and we'll turn it back over to Ben.
Thanks, Tom. Next up is Josh Rowan. Josh is, he has been appointed to Commissioner of Atlanta's new Department of Transportation to significantly accelerate and diversify projects with better options for getting around Atlanta safely, affordably, and equitably. Born in Texas and raised in New Mexico, and lived his adult life in Georgia, Josh attended Covenant College in Lookout Mountain, Georgia as a basketball walk-on, earning a scholarship before transferring to the Georgia Institute of Technology. Graduating with a bachelor's degree in civil engineering, Josh remained in Atlanta and spent the first 5 years of his career working with a local highway contractor. There, he learned the road building business from multiple perspectives as a laborer, a foreman, an estimator, and a project manager. Later, as a consultant in Cobb County, Josh was introduced to the management of large capital construction projects. For nearly 2 decades, Josh has worked in the public sector as a program manager for transportation, transit, education, healthcare, and law enforcement capital construction projects, throughout the eastern United States, as well as Mozambique and Tanzania. Most recently, he served as a general manager for the City of Atlanta's Renew TSPOS program. Josh is a member of Leadership Atlanta class of 2012, Leadership Cobb class of 2013, and Regional Leadership Institute class of 2018. Of all his achievements, knowledge, and experience, these are without a doubt the classes that matter the most. Throughout his career, Josh has been actively engaged in the Atlanta community, serving for a decade as a reserve deputy in Cobb County. He is currently a board member for Crime Stoppers Greater Atlanta and the Construction Infrastructure Systems Engineering Board at Georgia Tech. In addition, he is an emeritus member for Georgia Tech's External Advisory Board for the School of Civil and Environmental Engineering. He also mentors for the 100 Men to Mentors Challenge and Big Brothers Big Sisters of Metro Atlanta. Josh is a member of the Alliance Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu team, where he is a purple belt and trains under Professor Leonardo Nogueira. He serves on the vestry at Village Church, a local Anglican congregation. He and his wife, Nancy Ladson Rowan, have 4 children, John, Dorothy, Ed, and Josie, who range in age from 2 to 18. I'll now hand over to Josh, and as a reminder, please enter any questions you have into the YouTube chat, and we'll send those out once Josh finishes his presentation.
Great, thank you, Ben. And coming after two strong acts and Marietta and Gwinnett, I'm going to take a big pivot. So I'm going to share some of the things that we found to be valuable, some of the things that we cling to throughout the pandemic. And so to set the stage, the Atlanta Department of Transportation, it was funny listening to Winter talk about, is this December 574th? But we're actually only in our 7th month as a department. And so we were coming together of 4 different operational units within the city. And we made a key decision last year at this time that has proven to be very beneficial. And it was, let's not wait for legal, HR, and financial policies to kick in. Let's just start acting like we're a DOT, which can be kind of messy when you have 4 operational units all trying to work together as one. And so in that process, the leadership team came together and said, what's our purpose? What are we really about? And we settled on the fact that at the end of the day, safety is our business. And so initially the discussion was around the safety of the street user and the experience that you have when you come to Atlanta. We have, as many as 5 million people who come into the city, 15 million people on an annual basis for conventions and tourism. And so we want everyone to have a safe, enjoyable experience and come back. And so as the pandemic hit, we started thinking about, well, how does that apply to us? Safety is our business. And so we started to apply that purpose to everything that we were doing. And so, it's an overused statement, but it really became apparent that we couldn't use the pandemic as an excuse. We made up our minds that no matter how long the situation lasted, we weren't going to blame anything on the pandemic. And so there was an acceptance of the situation, and just knowing that change was going to be a regular thing and that there were things outside of our control. And so we started viewing the world in 90-day blocks of time and basically scheduling by quarter. I was especially proud of our team. We also were one that went to a remote posture, and we shifted to a full remote operations in 4 hours and actually had our operations fully paperless within 10 business days. So we really, I think, adapted well. But we started looking at the team. Again, it's four internal departments. So some folks knew each other, some didn't. So we knew that we had to start building trust and communication within our team, and really starting to address how do we deal with conflict and how do we solve problems. And so that became very important for us. And so there are 4 areas that I would say we've settled on that have impacted the end results. I want to give you a peek behind the curtain, and then we'll talk about the end result. And so I'll never forget sitting at our Claire Drive facility with our signal team and our striping and signage folks, and I thought there was going to be a lot of concern, and there was, about the pandemic, but the message was loud and clear. Commissioner, we have bills to pay. I have to work. You will keep me safe. And so that became sort of the marching orders from our team, was our team has to work and we have to keep them safe. And so we embarked on this interesting journey, this evolutionary process where we would make little tweaks, but then we also found that there were times where we would predefine that if certain parameters were exceeded, we would just shut down. And so we were successful up until the holidays. We had 10 COVID cases in all of 2020. And we were creatively using shutdowns to keep our folks safe. We received some communication from the team that they felt like they needed more time at home. And so we shifted to a 4-day work week. We went to 4 10-hour days, and we saw a huge uptick in just the general mood of the team. We also saw a 40% increase in productivity. And so we've continued in that manner. Even coming into the holidays, we realized that our team, so the joke is at ATL DOT, social distancing is only cooking out with people you know. So we were concerned about what our folks were doing over the holidays. We actually quarantined the entire department for 2 weeks. We didn't return to work until the Tuesday after the King holiday. And so we did not want to become a super spreader event. We stole the idea of the bubble from the NBA, and we're trying to create bubbles around our facilities and protect the cleanliness and safety in those. And so we really, what we talked about was just what's the role of grace in our operations, understanding people's unique situations, understanding family responsibilities, and just being open to communicate and discuss everybody's unique challenges. And so that led to a discussion about how are we going to adapt. And I'm going to repeat a little bit because we had a similar discussion where we decided, well, there's no traffic on the street. Let's remove all of our traffic control restrictions. So we told our contractors, you can start working when the sun comes up and stop working when the sun goes down. Now, we got them in trouble a little bit because they took that to a couple state routes, and GDOT called and said, what are you guys doing? But we actually paved we had as much tonnage in April as we do in a typical year. And so, much like the Gwinnett story, we found that projects that were in construction were accelerating. We also did the same thing with the utility permits. We had a heavy push from Verizon. That was an interesting discussion because I was getting bombarded with letters about 5G causing COVID. If you would be surprised how many of those I received. And we told Verizon, now's your time, get all of your permitted work finished so you can move on to the next phase of your project. And then with this uptick in construction on our streets, we also doubled our community engagement team, both through internal reassignment as well as consultant resources. And so we knew that the community was going to have questions. We knew that they were going to be asking why we weren't shutting down too. And so we were prepared to answer those questions. And so we became very adaptable and very fluid, and it just continued to work. And so speaking of community, it became very apparent that our internal community, that although I think most of us who are planners and engineers, or I know you can't paint with a broad brush, but tend to be introverted. I know I've enjoyed working in my own little closet here, but we realized that there was a craving for just interaction with the team. And so we created a format where we do a monthly COVID-friendly breakfast. And so we scatter out all throughout the yard and provide food for our staff. We even came up with what we call the drive-by ribbon cutting. It's no more than 5 people. And instead of cutting the ribbon, we take turns running through it, just trying to have fun with our team and kind of ease some of the mental stress. And then we actually have had quite a few very interesting themed Zoom happy hours that, I don't think we would get ourselves in trouble for anything that we did, but just trying to continue to look at the mental side of COVID and knowing that our folks were getting tired. They're getting worn out and grinding down. And so community became very important. And then the fourth factor was just the role of leadership. And knowing that this was something we hadn't planned on, this was something that none of us had experienced, was that we realized that most all of us were in positions where our leadership role had either changed or we were basically being given new leadership roles that we had never had encountered. And so we actually took the time to go through a formal exercise to develop our philosophy of leadership as a team, and basically said, we can't write rules for everything that we're going to experience, but we certainly can agree upon these are our values. So safety is our business, but then we went through and we looked at what are our values from things that we're good stewards of the resources that we're given, that we're communication is key. And so we really settled in on these are the things that matter to us. And then we started the process of powering down the organization. We pushed the decision-making process as low as we possibly could push it so that decisions were being made in real time and not getting bogged down by people looking for me or one of the deputies. I will share, I was really proud that the other day I got an email from someone in the community saying, hey, you're moving too fast on this project. Can you slow down? And so, for any of you who've been in the region for a while, you know that Atlanta has seldom been accused of moving too quickly. So that I'm going to laminate that one and hang it on the wall. And so when you look back at 2020, it was actually a very good year work-wise for us. Early in the year, we passed Vision Zero legislation. And so we are a Vision Zero city. We had just an inordinate number of deaths on our streets in 2019. And so we're attacking that. We're looking at transportation from a multimodal perspective. Mayor Bottoms had issued an action plan for safer streets, which is a repurposing of excess capacity within our streets for micromobility. That actually became very important as we saw a surge in bicycle ridership, and we had space dedicated for the bicycle, and continue to have discussions about the role of both scooters and bicycles and the future of the city. We had a project that was, for all practical purposes, stalled. That was supposed to be finished before the Super Bowl. Our MLK corridor improvement project. Not only did we get that back on track, but it was a really proud moment for our team when 2 weeks ago, the Thursday before the King holiday, we actually installed a 28-foot tall statue of Dr. King on the road that is named after him. And so we're proud that corridor is worthy of the name Martin Luther King Jr. And so if you get a chance, the statue is quite something to see. We've advanced numerous projects in our $500 million renewed T-SPLOS program, so that's moving well. We continue to coordinate very closely with MARTA on a $3 billion investment in transit. About to see a lot of action on a number of those projects. And I'd really just sum this up with the other piece that, and I'm certain that Marietta and Gwinnett would agree with me on this one, is that we don't do anything in a vacuum. In transportation, we have a lot of partners, whether it be our consulting partners, whether it be our agency partners, whether it be our community partners. And we found that at the end of the day, our focus had to be on strengthening those relationships. And so we're proud of the work that we've done to build relationships with agencies like MARTA, like GDOT, like Greta Certa, ARC, where we've moved in a very positive direction with our neighborhood planning units. We're even working with the Council for Quality Growth to talk about regional transit and how can Atlanta support a regional approach to transit so that when as the region grows and we see 3 million people over the next 20, 25 years, we want to be dedicating the space so that operations like a Gwinnett Transit has dedicated right of way to get in and out of the city as quickly and efficiently as possible. And so a lot of very healthy conversations that probably wouldn't have happened had we not been thrust into this situation or taking place. And so we just want to continue to build upon it. I think we're all kind of getting tired of just some of the requirements of COVID. We know that it's not over. And so we're going to continue to really pay attention to the mental health side of this, but just really, really proud of kind of the things you don't see, the development of this team, the development of these relationships, and then the I think the proof's in the pudding when you look at the projects that we've been able to deliver and tee ourselves up for just a strong 2021. And so that sums up my presentation, and happy to turn it back over to Ben.
Thanks, Josh. All right, so as a reminder, please input any questions you have into the YouTube chat. And now that everyone's presentations are finished, we'll see what we have. First question is from Kristen Westcott. What initiatives have been identified to address higher travel speeds on the highway and surface streets, especially in neighborhoods? Let's see, Tom, can you answer this one?
Yeah, a program we started in actually 2018 was for radar trailers and other devices to give drivers feedback, your speed signs. So we've continued that, and we've actually in 2020 started a pilot project to deploy these and see the effect of these type of signs in the long term for speeds. Not necessarily in a subdivision, but in more residential areas of the county. And then we continue to take a lot of requests for our speed trailers and meet those needs. And if our pilot project's successful, then we'll look at how we want to expand that in the future.
Thanks. Bill, you also mentioned you were seeing higher speeds in Marietta. Do you want to answer this one as well?
Sure, be glad to. We're doing many of the same things in the neighborhood, doing traffic calming device installation. We're doing speed signs and all the rest. A lot of speed hump requests that we've been putting in over the last couple of years. One thing that we did see with COVID is that we had to reallocate some of our police resources and go ahead and put more of them out, basically looking for super speeders and folks that are just going too fast. And so we have a lot more boots on the ground devoted to that right now than we used to. Plus, we're using technology. We are using we call flock cameras, but they're basically license readers. And so we've got those deployed all over the city. And we've been tying those readings together with our system of cameras that we have throughout the city. And so the police are actually using both of them together, and they're finding somebody that is speeding through neighborhoods and they're getting complaints about it. They're tracking them on the cameras, and then they're using the flock cameras to identify what that license plate is. And then we're able to go to their house and give them the ticket there.
Thanks, Bill. Now we'll try to get to some more questions. The next question is from Shannon Fair. Assuming COVID gets under control, knock on wood, do you see things such as working remotely switching back to how they were before, or do you see them staying this way, which would have less commuting, less office space, and less of a financial burden? Josh, let's go with you.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm going to expose a personal bias. About 10 years ago, I made a comment in a Chamber of Commerce meeting, I won't name which one, where I said if we would embrace technology and work from home, we'd take trips off the road. And so for our team, we're in an interesting position. We're fully remote, except for our maintenance crews, and we're performing better. And so we don't plan to return to business as usual. We're seeing more of maybe a 60-40 type of approach, and only being in City Hall when we have to absolutely be there. Otherwise, providing our team the flexibility to do what they need to do, and just continue with the embracing of technology as a tool to be very nimble.
Thanks, Josh. We have a question here for Bill from Sachin. How much variation in traffic pattern do you experience during those months of high red light violations?
I can't give you the exact number, but we saw a lot of it. Absolutely. You could go really into any of our office parks that we have, and during that time period, you could look and the parking lots will be empty because everybody was working from home. So we really saw a huge decrease in the amount of individuals that were actually out on the road, especially during the peak times in the morning and the afternoon. It was a substantial reduction. Because of that reduction, that's when we started having the real problems with the super speeders and the folks that were racing. One accident that we had here that everybody really has paid attention to is we had 5 cars that were actually residents of Atlanta that were up here, and they just decided that they would race through this whole county. And they were, clocking speeds of 80 and 35 zones, and ended up finally getting in a crash, and a gentleman ended up dying. But because the roads were not clogged up, it was creating opportunities for those individuals that wanted to take advantage of it and get out there and try to drag race and speed in those neighborhoods.
Thanks, Bill. And I see that we have no more questions as of right now, and I want to remain cognizant of everyone's time. So thank you to all of our panelists, and I'll hand over to Winter to close us out, and we'll hang around for a few minutes afterwards in case you have any more questions that come up. We'll try to get to those after the 1 o'clock hour.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ben, so much for moderating such a good group of people here. And just want to give a shout out to Bill, Tom, Josh again for their time today, and also such a great discussion. I did make a few notes myself that I took on personally. Was good to hear what Bill Bruton had to say regarding the camera violations increase, as well as the super speeders going up. I'm hearing that from my home at night, hint, hint, Tom Sever, since I am a Gwinnett County resident. We are having some of those racers, I guess you would say, that are finding their way up in our area. So it is good to hear, because I know our community is really talking about it, trying to figure out how we can stop it, because we're hearing it at about the 10 o'clock hour, which is not even that late. So people could still be out on the roadways at that time. I find it interesting Bill used that wild, wild west term. It just really makes me understand a little bit more as to what we're dealing with out here, with people just kind of, having the opportunities to do things in such a way and just change their way of typical travel. So that's quite interesting. And I do see it as being that. Tom Sever bringing up Bush Road with some of that speed increase. That's actually right outside or really close to outside my home. I travel that road quite often and have been paying attention and seeing some of what he's suggesting. Josh, honestly, I don't want to make it sound like Josh did anything in simple terms, because I know, but given that his initial thinking, almost makes me want to step back. When you're in a moment of just a critical time that seems like you can't even figure out how to move forward, let's step back a second. And the fact that he listened to what his people had to say, which was, 1, I have to work, and 2, you have to keep me safe. I think just to bring it to that point right there, with a lot of things we do every day, is exactly right. We all have to work. We need to pay bills, but at the same time, we've got to stay safe. And seeing how that kind of moves the pendulum forward or puts it in the right direction, I think this is just great. So 3 different, locals who did it 3 different ways, but definitely went through a lot of similar things. I think this was a really good discussion. Also, if you still have questions, I'm not seeing any right now, but if you do still have questions, please do not hesitate to go to the ITS Georgia website or contact me. We'll do our best to get some answers for you from this group, as I'm sure they have plenty of information on that part. And again, a big shout out to this month's sponsor, Chuck, and the KCI team. Thank you so much for supporting ITS Georgia. Keep in mind, next month, February 24th, put it on your calendar to come back to hear more about Smart Columbus. And, feel free to reach out to me, or again, any of the board members, if you're interested in being a part of any of the ITS Georgia committees and supporting us on that. Keep an eye out for ITS Georgia emails, social media announcements to stay informed. If you have any questions whatsoever, contact me, ITS Georgia website, click the contact us link. Thank you all again for joining us today. And on a more important note, if you or anyone you know needs some assistance during this situation, please reach out to us, as we want to make sure we are available to help our members and community in any way we possibly can. Please continue to stay healthy, and we look forward to seeing some of you in person soon. Thank you again.